What did a crazy stalker do because they had a crush on you? He asked to meet. I told him I wasn't home. He answered with, "But your light's on." He lived nowhere near me. My street is a cul-de-sac, so there's no reason he was passing by. He was creepy in many other ways as well. He told people we were in love. Nope. That we had forbidden love. Nope, nope. And kept messaging me for years. I stopped responding in the first year. I was between 15 to 23, and he was 23 to 31. Even when I was living in another city, he kept telling people about our love. He acted like a normal, sweet guy, so people had trouble believing me. I had to deny more than once that I'd ever kissed him, and I was his friend briefly when I was 15 and ignored him. It only stopped when I randomly met a friend of his in the city I live in and showed him all of the messages. The guy was shocked. As far as I know, his friend talked with him and he finally stopped. Curiously, he began dating a girl with the same name as mine. Creepy as frick. He proposed marriage so aggressively that he had to be escorted off the premises, and then later broke the lock off my dorm room and tried to get into bed with me. I invited her to hang out. She was already outside my place waiting for the call. Took pictures of me while I slept. There was a group of us all sleeping in one room. I woke up to see him taking photos of me. Plucked a hair off of my jacket and ate it in front of me. He broke into my cousin's house and stole my guinea pig to feed to a snake because I wouldn't break up with my boyfriend to date him. She sent me threatening pictures after she found out I had a girlfriend. My state's psychiatric care is a joke. I had her hospitalized multiple times, and they'd first pump her full of drugs and send her home. The police were an even bigger joke, and they couldn't understand why a guy wouldn't want a beautiful woman to be obsessed with them. They didn't seem to understand that I needed a restraining order not only for my own safety, but to keep her safe from herself. I inevitably had to be moved out of state, change banks, phone companies, jobs, and I dropped off social media just to have a life that existed outside of her. Several years later, she did thank me for it. Good on you for doing what you could to get away for both of your sakes, and to her for recognizing that she had an issue. Hopefully you managed to get an even better life in your new setting. Found out he'd been telling my co-workers that we'd been dating for weeks, when in reality I'd never spoken to the guy in my life. Found out when I was asked about my crazy weekend with my boyfriend, when I am in fact single as all hell. This was a while ago, in high school, so I don't know if I can really fault him for being an idiot, but he told everyone we knew that I was his dream girl and that we were going to get married. He actively sought out rumors of who I was crushing on, or who was crushing on me, or just any guy who had talked to me and tell them to please, please, please let him have the chance and to not ask me out. Weirdest thing was I didn't even really talk to him and didn't even know his last name. I just said hi during calculus every day. Wrote racy fictional material about me in which I said, "Stop, I'm only 16. He was in his mid-20s at the time. Walked a good 5 miles with me because she was going my way. I was almost home before I found out she lived 30 seconds from the pub I met her in. She said she'd have to stay at mine as it wasn't safe for her to walk home alone. I ended up having to explain that I wasn't attracted to her and had to call her a taxi home and pay for it. Wrote a love letter in blood. Somehow the teacher got hold of it and then the whole school found out. I had someone I worked with at a movie theater ask me out and I told them I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. So the next time he was closing and I was opening the next morning, he poured popcorn salt all over the office desk and shaped it to say, "Die," and then my name. One of my brother's friends tried to impress a girl by shoving his whole hand down his throat. They stole my hat and refused to give it back because it smelled like me. Paid someone to attack me so they could rescue me. Didn't work. Hit the attacker with a book bag, pinned him down. He started yelling that he had been paid to do it just as the other guy showed up. I was on my way home from work, he knew my schedule, and I took the bus. A junior in high school tried to tickle my pickle in front of my friend when I was a senior because she thought I was cute. This isn't the only advance she made, but after this, she lost her mind a bit. I used to be a mall cop, and one of the girls at the frozen yogurt place asked me to prom publicly on Instagram as her Man Crush Monday. I was 20 and out of the high school mindset, so it was pretty embarrassing. I politely declined, and the post came down. Not really disturbing, I just always felt so bad that she shot her shot so publicly for it to not work out. These comments make me really glad that I'm ugly. This guy I knew for a while went out of his way to introduce himself to me. He was nice enough. We hung out in a group sometimes. Eventually, he started to do weird stuff. He asked me where I'd bought some new clothes, and then I saw him the next week wearing the exact same clothes. The shirt and jeans and shoes. Then I started seeing his car in my street at random times of the night. I got up to go to the bathroom one night and to let my cat in, and he was sitting in his car watching my house. I wasn't scared of this guy. He was weaker than me, but it was really weird. He'd call me and put me on speakerphone and then record our conversations. I found this out from a mutual friend. Anyway, I made sure he knew I didn't like it, and I stopped hanging out with that group of friends. Then a few months later, I received a call from one of my best friends who told me a story about the same guy who had copied his exact hair color, which was red and black and blonde at the time. Since then, we always think back to this guy and laugh. We call him Stalker Adam. To be fair, he wasn't dangerous. I think he was just awkward and lonely and didn't know how to cope with his feelings. Snapped my bra strap to get my attention. Put a pipe bomb in my husband's truck. Hey, free pipe bomb though. She stole a bunch of my homework and then asked me out in a very passive-aggressive manner. Then she followed me home, rang my doorbell, and demanded I go out with her. We were 14 and her parents drove her. I think I just told her to go home and close the door. I didn't really know how to deal with sociopaths back then, and she took it pretty badly. She did not leave me alone after that. Frequent calls and shaming, but she didn't do anything crazy and it didn't really escalate. I don't know if this counts, but I broke up with an ex because I just wasn't into her. Started dating a new girl and ran into my ex at a party a few weeks ago. She pulled me into the bathroom and showed me her thigh in which she had carved my name into it, claiming she still loved me and we'd only dated a month. I was a 19-year-old waitress at the time, and a 49-year-old man that I'd served tried to connect with me through the missed connections page on Craigslist. He then came to my work and professed his love for me in a Christmas card that ironically had a cartoon of Santa being kicked in the nads by a child with the caption, "Stranger Danger." In his note, he said he wasn't sure if I'd be interested in an older man, and he had a wife and children, so would have to find a way around that little detail. I didn't feel safe at work, so I had the police intervene and tell him not to bother me again. Well, even if literally every other thing this man did wasn't a glaring red flag, that card showing that child safety was going too far told you everything you should know about him. Nice of him to give you written evidence to assist in your case, though. Showed up at my job and requested me by name, to serve her and her new boyfriend. She kept saying how great he was in bed. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there. Trying to do the things my girlfriends did, like stepping on my shoes while holding onto my shoulders, hugging me, among other things. I came home from high school and my college-age crusher was sitting on the sofa chatting with my family. What the frick? I only went on 2 very platonic dates with him. I was only friendly, but he had way more in mind. He actually asked my parents if he could marry me because I was such a virginal angel, despite repeated texts and calls. Goodbye and good riddance. My God. I used to train with this girl who was crude and blunt, but kind of pretty, and she was a heavy hitter, so she'd spar with the lads as well. No girl wanted to be her spar partner. After having my first go with her as partner, I took some hits and realized she was way too strong to duke it out with, so I began grappling. After a few weeks of this routine, she began to get good at grappling as well. It got weird. She managed to catch my back and just whispered, "If I tap you out, we can do it like dogs later. How about it?" And honest to God, for a second I felt like I was going to become an unspeakable act victim right there and then. I learned later that she had a crush on me but was too embarrassed to do anything normal about it. This guy lived a while away from me, so he learned where I studied from a friend of mine. I didn't tell him for many reasons, and he came one day without saying anything to me. I told him that I had classes that day, but he insisted that I should stay with him. Even though he knew I had a boyfriend, he kissed me and bought me a gift. When I told him I wasn't interested, again, he cried and shouted at me. She went through every picture I had on my MySpace and took pictures of herself in the same pose or scene, and then sent them to me. She did that around 20 to 25 times. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. Oh, I knew a mentally ill girl who had a crush on me for a while and did various stalkery things, including showing up at my work, changing her phone number 4 times to trick me into answering, and running away from home by hopping on a bus to a city 6 hours away, and then texting me at 3 a.m. that she had changed her mind and asked me to come pick her up and bring her home. At no point did I ever indicate any interest in her whatsoever. On the contrary, I repeatedly told her we'd never be together, but it was just in one ear and out the other. But the crap she pulled with me pales in comparison to another guy she also had a crush on. He was living with a few friends, and their place was a pretty regular hangout for a whole bunch of people. Consequently, they almost never locked doors. She showed up and let herself in one afternoon while they were all at work, and he came home to find her sleeping in his bed. He had to threaten to call the police to get her to leave. Another time, she literally hid behind some bushes with a knife, and when he came walking by, she jumped out and told him she'd self-delete if he didn't hug her. My stalker married me. I have such a big crush, I'm going to make sure you can't ever leave me by law. A guy that saw me working in Subway once brought his entire family to meet me. I'd never met the guy. I only know who he was because he was with a group of guys staring at me there a week earlier. They apparently waited over an hour. It started asking about me so much that the workers started keeping me updated on when the guy was there so I could avoid him. Broke into my house and laid down on my couch with me while I was taking a nap. Oh god, this has brought the memories flooding back. So this happened in my first grade in school. First, she once walked up to me randomly and started scratching my back. Like just wildly down my back like a raptor trying to claw something. That's when I began to think she was weird. But then there was the main event. The class was sitting on the ground for story time. A girl named F was wearing a purple dress and white stockings sits down next to me. Then as the teacher begins to read, I feel her bite me hard on my shoulder. I scream out in pain and begin to cry. The teacher looks up confused and I say that F bit me. The girl looks confused and says, "But I like you, that's why I bit you." Needless to say, I didn't like her after that. Funny thing was, I did think she looked cute that day. After the bite though, I made sure to keep my distance from her. I vaguely noticed a car that was behind me the entire way to work from like the second turn I made out of my house. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I pulled into work and this guy walks over to my car and opens the door and I was like, what the fuck? Oh, hey? What's up? It was some dude I'd served 2 weeks ago named Bob. So he said something along the lines of, "I bought this book for you." We'd talked about how I like to read and he'd recommended this author. So I'm still pretty weirded out that he opened my door and we're the only ones in the parking lot, so I just quickly said, "Thank you," and told him I'd see him inside once my shift started. He then goes on to say, "You didn't see me behind you the whole way? I was waving my arms out the window, but you wouldn't look back. I knew it was you because I remembered your license plate is," and he just read off my number plate. At this point, I'm just calculating in my head how to get the frick out of the situation, and internally just freaking. I don't even remember what I said, but it was something to the effect of, "Oh, no, I didn't see you, but hey, I've really got to go in." Oh, but wait, there's more. He then says, "Oh, well, I live right next to you. Are you in the white apartments or the orange ones? I'm in the golf community right up the street. I drove around to the white ones for a while looking for you so I could give you the book." What the frick? I just told him I really had to go or I'd be late. I went inside and hid in the back for like half an hour until he left and told management and they put him on the banned list. This was 2 weeks ago and I've been parking my car 3 buildings over and walking to my apartment because he memorized my plate number. Every time I drive, I've been scoping out everyone around me to make sure it's not him. He mentioned leaving to go up north for a few weeks the last day I served him, so I think he's gone, but he'll be back eventually, and I don't really know what else to do other than keep him banned from my work. I met this guy one time, for frick's sake. Sorry this got so long, it's been stressing me out. Nobody had a crush on me, I was the one having said crush. I wrote my phone number on a potato and rolled it to them when I was in 9th grade. I never got a call. Not my brightest moment, to be honest. The old Irish hello. I think you should have tried it out a few more times just to be sure, but then again I guess it's not a winning method for everybody. A classmate of mine who I barely talked to came up to me on Valentine's Day and handed me chocolates and a huge teddy bear with my name sewn into it. A bit weird, but I was appreciative of the gift. However, the worst part is that they handed me a drawing of me leaning on a motorcycle in very revealing clothes that looked kinky as all heck. Keep in mind that my fashion is quite conservative. and they then proceeded to loudly recite a 2-page-long love poem in public whilst I was with my friends. The poem referred to me as his princess, love of his life, among other things. I rejected him and never spoke to him again. You know, when I read that first paragraph, I was thinking, oh, that's too much, but the intent is kind of sweet. Then the second part, and oh no. He cornered me in the hallway when I was on my way to the restroom and proceeded to lean forward, purse his lips, and close his eyes, like I'd been waiting to kiss him my entire life. I proceeded to tell him, "Not today, Daniel," and go about my business. Also, the kid was 5 and I was his teacher. Alright, I should clarify, I'm 5'9", and by cornered I mean ran up to me in the hall, stopped about 2 feet in front of me, blocking my path, and then did the above. Of course, he was 5, so it wasn't really that difficult to get around him. Daniel did this on the regular, actually. His home life wasn't amazing, and I got the feeling he was just starved for attention. A lot of the other teachers, especially the ones that had him before me, didn't think he'd amount to anything since he was always acting up in class. But I like to give all of my kids a chance. Once I gave him a little more one-on-one time that he really needed, he stopped being so disruptive and apparently developed a crush on me. She made me a poster board, scrapbook style, of the moments of our friendship she'd interpreted romantically. Show up at my work at like 4 a.m. and stare into the dark restaurant watching me while I prepped the baking for the day alone. They also advanced the creep and started showing up in my apartment building at weird hours. Told me she had dreams of unaliving me and actually had plans too. It creeped me the frick out, but still I could see she had some serious mental problems and I tried to help her as much as I could. I mockingly called her my special little snowflake while flirting. She had never heard of the label snowflake before. The next day she shows me her new tattoo of a snowflake. They hid in a closet while I did the deed with someone else. Not so bad, but freshman year of college, I had a girl in my class both semesters, and she would not stop staring at me or trying to sit next to me. She'd make comments like, "I like your voice," or uncommon stuff like that, and when I said I had a girlfriend, she called her a hussy. He announced he had a crush on someone in our therapy group while staring directly at me. The entire session was derailed to awkwardly deal with his feelings while I wanted to melt into the floor. We got coffee one time after a group session and he went and did this. I was 19, he was 25, and he knew I had issues with social anxiety. Top 5 worst experiences of my life, hands down. When I was in high school, a painfully shy girl in my art class secretly painted a portrait of me. We were supposed to paint a portrait of a historical figure. We were assigned 6 classes to work on our projects. She shyly showed it to me and said, "This is you." I was stunned, especially since in her eyes I looked like Marty Feldman, the guy who played Igor in the movie Young Frankenstein, only less attractive. Also, one of my ears seemed to have taken flight and was about half an inch away from the side of my head. Since her painting was in my hands, I gave her my portrait of Ben Franklin to her and stammered something and left. Upon reflection, my Ben Franklin probably did bear a passing resemblance to her. I mean, not the glasses, but, you know. They started speaking in my native language when nobody taught him and listening to the same music as I do. I'd never shared my playlist with him. Weirdest case I've ever had is where a girl challenged me to a table tennis match, but she used her flip-flops as dual-wielded paddles. It was 2 a.m. One stood on top of a desk and asked me to kiss him in front of the class. Yeah, that was odd. Next one kissed my knee? I don't know what he was doing. And then there was the one who bullied my little brother and called me bad names all the time because he thought it would get me to like him. No, calling me a fat slag isn't going to get me to be into you, honey. She asked if I wanted to go on a date. I said no. She undressed in the middle of high school and asked, "How about now?" while caressing her body. I said no again and went to my girlfriend, now my wife. Asked me if I had a boyfriend. After I said yes, he didn't like that. Red flags started going off in my head. They made me an X with my name carved into the handle. It was pretty crude and it was the most bizarre display of affection I've ever received. Anytime they don't take no for an answer, it always weirds me out. I told the guy no several times today while I was trying to work and that I had a boyfriend. Ended up telling him, "Sir, I have a boyfriend and I'm 7 months pregnant." His response? "Oh, I'm very good with kids." What did you do at work that made you realize Well, I'm getting fired, aren't I?